Ask any competitive Pokemon player what the most prestigious thing you can achieve is, and the answer will be the same. The trophy. It might sound stupid from an outside perspective, but these little pixel squares that appear on your Smogon profile mean more than money to some people. They're little souvenirs of the blood, sweat, and tears that some of the greatest players put into the game. Specifically, the trophies you receive for winning individual tournaments are especially respected. Winning one of these proves that you were, at one point, on top of the world, and winning just one is the goal for many players. The rare few who manage to win more than one cement their legacies forever. BKC, McMegan, Michael the Best, Ojama all have two, and ABR and Empo, the two unanimous greatest players of all time, have 4 and 5 respectively. But before those two could achieve their feats, the road had to be paved for them by a man who may not be as well known, but is just as legendary. So, like and subscribe, and prepare to learn the story of Ciele, the first player to ever win 3 trophies in competitive Pokemon. Okay, no, but seriously. This is Ciele. He's from England, and he signed up to Smogon in September 2009, 1 year after the release of Pokemon Platinum, and around the time Heart Gold Soul Silver would release in Japan. The introduction of Wi-Fi battles into 4th generation would cause competitive Pokemon battling to explode in popularity, and player skill would rise as a result. Smogon had existed since 2004, with battles taking place over the ancient technology of IRC and NetBattle. But with this new wave of players, including Ciele, and a shiny new Smogon partner battle simulator called Shoddy Battle, online battling would take off, and early Smogon culture as we know it would become firmly established. The early editions of Smogon Tour, Oceania's era of dominance of World Cup, and legends of the era like Earthworm, Loki, Husk, and Goofball were all not only well known, but celebrated. This era wasn't perfect, and it's far from the highly refined time we live in today. Ghosting was commonplace. You could choose which World Cup team you wanted to play on with basically no verification. And some players today even joke that double switching hadn't been invented yet. But nonetheless, these great players were, and still are, legends of the game. And when Ciele started his competitive career around 2010, he, like everyone else, wanted nothing more than to join them in the Trophy Club. Cut to 2012. Pokemon Black 2 and White 2 had just been released, and the 5th generation had turned the game on its head. New additions like hidden abilities and team preview had flipped the game and deepened its strategic depth, and as the franchise evolved, so would Smogon's tournament circuit, with the introduction of a new tournament, the Smogon Grand Slam. This tournament was introduced to put a spotlight not on the overused format, but instead on Smogon's lower tiers, Ubers, UU, RU, NU, and Little Cup. PU hadn't been invented yet. Players would compete in sub-tournaments for each of these tiers, earning points for better placements, and the players with the most points would play in a single elimination playoffs containing all the lower tiers. This is still how Slam works today, and our protagonist Ciele would find himself in these playoffs. Just 7 other gamers stood between him and the inaugural Slam title, so he would take them on. His first opponent was Fooly Cooley, better known as Watashi, a longtime player and lower tier enthusiast who is still around and putting up great numbers today. He has more Little Cup tournament victories than any other player ever, and that's one of the tiers he plays less often. This was still early in Watashi's career though, and Ciele would manage to take a tight 3-2 victory. Next would be his semi-finals opponent, Blarajan, another legendary Little Cup player, who would later go on to become a VGC regional champion in 2024. An intimidating threat for sure, but nothing a fired up Ciele couldn't handle, and he would win this match 3-0. Finally was Nelson, a Belgian player who himself had a rough set of opponents. After a tiebreaker to even make playoffs, in his first round he made a major upset against McMegan, who had won 3 out of the 5 Slam sub-tournaments to qualify and was easily the first seed. In his second round he had taken down the infamous Blue, and now, finally he was up against Ciele. The Pokemon Perfect battle simulator these battles were hosted on is long defunct, but like many other ancient matches, we can still read the battle logs. Nelson would win Ubers and Little Cup, but Ciele would win UU and NU, meaning the hopes and dreams of both players would ride on one RU match. Both players would load fairly balanced teams without a strong lean towards offense or defense, but Ciele wouldn't need offense to completely dominate his opponent. Turn 18. Executor used Hidden Power. It's super effective. The Foe's Escavalier lost 88% of its health. Executor lost some of its HP. The Foe's Escavalier fainted. Ciele won the battle. And just like that, Ciele had done it. He had won his trophy. A trophy he was the sole holder of at that. Now, many players in Smogon, both then and now, are known for big egos and lots of bragging, loving to immerse themselves in drama and glory like a professional wrestler. So how did Ciele react as Smogon's newest hotshot? Well, not like you might expect. One thing that you have to know about Ciele is that he was very quiet, hated drama, and was generally much more mature, reserved, and private than many players. The only reason I can tell you he's from England is that said information was needed for World Cup. This reservedness was also reflected in his playstyle. He preferred bulkier Pokemon and made reserved, patient plays, being seemingly unfazed by emotions. Similarly, unlike other famous players like Blunder or Tsung, who were known to rely on others for their team building, Ciele preferred to work in complete isolation without collaborating or borrowing from others. This meant that a lot of Ciele's ideas were offbeat and innovative takes on metagames, and he would popularize tactics like Trick Room Bronzong in DPP and Protect Stall in ORAS, which are still used to this day. Now, Ciele would not have any super notable achievements for a while. He would win some smaller tournaments, have some decent success in team tournaments with an overall 28-25 record, and put his maturity to good use as a moderator, tournament host, and tournament director. But Ciele's next moment of greatness after Slam would be a 4-year wait. In 2016's Season 21 of Smogon Tour, the same tournament previous greats like Earthworm had inspired the community by winning. Smogon Tour's format is simple and exciting. Like Grand Slam, it would involve grinding points to make a playoff stage, but what makes Smog Tour unique is that these tournaments were live ones, consisting of the 3 most recent OU generations. Instead of the standard Smogon weekly scheduled matches, you simply post in, and the entire tournament happens on the spot. This has always made Smog Tour very popular, and for years it was the only tournament beloved enough to happen twice a year, instead of just once. Ciele would play in this tournament, and end up qualifying as the 5th seed out of 16, and he would go on to face some very powerful opponents. The first two, Hellpounder and Malekith, are still very strong players today, and his semi-finals win against Sweepage is well remembered for a black-white destruction with Porygon 2 offense, a game perfectly emblematic of Ciele's quirky and innovative style. In the finals, he would find himself against Cosine 180, a very strong German player who was actually my favourite player when I first got into competitive Pokemon. Luckily, Pokemon Showdown existed by this point, so we could see some of these games in action. Ciele would take DPP, with cool techs like Natural Gift Grass Gyarados and his Trick Room Bronzong, but Cosine would fire back in ORAS, leaving the fate of Ciele's second trophy to Black-White OU. His team in this game wasn't anything crazy, but this was proof that Ciele didn't need offbeat strategies or gimmicks to win. Just by raw precision, planning, and positioning, Ciele would cleanly outplay Cosine this game, ending it in just 19 turns and winning his second trophy. Ciele was now firmly established as a legend. Winning 2 trophies in such different tournaments years apart from each other was proof of his raw genius in both building and gameplay, and just as impressive was how he didn't let it get to his head. Instead, he just kept on going as usual. Except, there wouldn't be another half a decade until his next major achievement. In fact, it was just 1 year around the corner. Official ladder tournament. You make a new account, and you climb to the top of the OU ladder, like a suspect test on steroids. All the people who make it the highest get to, you guessed it, play in a playoffs bracket, but this time a double elimination one. Ciele's first opponent would be STFU It's a Cartoon, an unknown Stallmane who Ciele would defeat. But next round, he would find himself up against Blunder. Ironically, Ciele would pull out a clutch victory by using Stall himself in Game 3. Next was Extra Shine, an extremely strong player who had been playing in SBL since he was 15 years old, and who invented the infamous ORAS bird spam hyper offense. It was not enough to stop Ciele though. Nothing was apparently, as he'd go on to take quick 2-0 victories against Shoka and Rainy Days. Like that, he had made it to the finals of the tournament, and was on the precipice of being the first ever person to achieve 3 trophies. Even more impressively, doing it in 3 finals. For reference, Solwind, the only other person with 3 trophies, has played in 11 grand finals, but that's a story for another day. Everything looked perfect for Ciele. He was not only the favourite on paper, but also had an advantage thanks to his opponent, Sabella, coming from the losers bracket, meaning he'd need a bracket reset to win. Even better, Ciele would take the first game. Just 1 game away from making history, all he had to do was load something safe and trust himself to outplay. That's when one of the most memorable games ever, and Ciele's magnum opus, finally happened.
What is going on, friends? We are back with game 2 between Sabella and Ciele Ulti Grand Finals, and I don't know why the fuck there's a Pikachu, but there is a Pikachu.
Ciele had taken a Mega Manectric electric terrain team and replaced a Mega with a Pikachu. Why did he do this? Because he promised his friend he would as a joke. And the craziest part is that it worked. Now, Pikachu didn't do much other than hit a surf and get sacrificed for momentum, but it was undeniable. A Pikachu had made history, and the meme Pikachu better than Mega Manectric was born. It just goes to show how good Ciele really was, that even while memeing with literal ZU Pokemon in grand finals, his victory was still inevitable, and it was this very victory that had made him the first person to ever hit 3 trophies. But what now? In Ciele's win post, he talks about starting to feel jaded, and it's easy to see why. Nearly a decade of competing, and he had now earned trophies in current gen, older gens, and lower tiers. Alexander wept, for there were no more tiers left to conquer. He would stick around for a while longer, but finally, in 2019, after losing in round 5 of OST to the American star player Insult, he would leave Smogon behind forever, his final post being his win for the round before. In fact, the last contact I know anyone having with him was 2 years ago. It's a fitting end for a player who always loved peace and solitude, and it's his most impressive feat of all, actually managing to quit competitive Pokemon. But his legacy is undeniable. In 2024, Smogon would rank him as the 7th greatest player of all time. And with all that being said, I'll leave you with this. Even as the old legends peacefully fade away, or go out in an explosive downfall, making room for the new generation of players, it's still worth taking our time, every once in a while, to remember their achievements and what they made possible for us today. Thanks for watching.